am excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be discussing the future of global geopolitics and economics in the face of the two biggest changes the world is facing right now, which is the development of AI and fertility collapse. So this can be thought of as sort of our fertility collapse update video and and AI. Someone was like, "You've been doing so much AI recently." And I'm like, AI is literally going to change everything about the human condition over our lifetimes. Anybody who's not thinking about AI as much as they're thinking about Rome, is in order, buddy.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, Rome happened. You can't change it. Oh dear.
No, but I mean, when as you're, predicting out your career or what education means for you and your kids, or really anything, what's happening in the space of AI is incredibly important. Now, Simone, I sent you yesterday some maps, and we'll just go over these in turn with our fans because I think that they're very important for getting a grip on how bad things are now. And this first graph is terribly designed. The darker blue areas where it gets to like purple and darker blue, those are areas of lower fertility. The lighter blue areas are areas of higher fertility.
So the more tan, brown, orangish, the higher
Yes.
the fertility. The more darker purple, the lower the fertility.
And then the lighter,
and you see, I mean, it's kind of
red.
obvious because all you have to do on a graph like this to calibrate is look at South Korea, and then you kind of know what's going on.
Yeah, and then the
But
lighter,
Nepal, man, I didn't know Nepal was doing so horribly.
We'll get to these in a second. So the lighter red is lower fertility, but it's higher fertility for the darker red. So they're sort of treating white, the 2.1, replacement TFR, as the midpoint, and then you move either to red or blue depending on where you are. And
are you colorblind? It's purple.
What you should immediately see here is, or purple, okay, is that the Americas are now just completely effed out. Right? Like, I think a lot of people thought that South America would take longer to get to the place it is right now, but we're now at a place where we are, depending on how you calculate it, if you do it like per person, so if you correct by the population of a country,
yeah,
Latin America may be below the United States in terms of TFR now.
Yeah, she's gone, guys.
And if it isn't right now, it's going to be soon. And this is really big because when we're talking about the future of geopolitics, this is true both within the United States and around the world. And we'll get to this as we explore these different regional maps, because I think that's a better way to do this. Who's going to own the future? Are countries and populations that, while being economically and technologically productive, can still be high fertility. All right. A country like Somalia, which you can see right here, I'm pretty sure that's Somalia, which is super high fertility, doesn't effing matter. It doesn't matter if Somalia has 20 times its current population. That's just going to be 20 times more people in desperate suffering. It might matter to, surrounding companies in terms of like refugee crises and stuff like that. But it doesn't matter on like the global stage, right? Like they're not going to suddenly become a powerhouse. And
we imagine if they could choose, they would probably rather first improve quality of life before they improve,
which is going to lower the birth rate. But
yeah,
the place where this can really be seen is in East Asia. And so here we're going to be talking about the map I have on screen here is East Asia more broadly, but I'm going to talk about it along with Oceania because they're basically a connected economy. When people think about fertility rate collapse, even though it's a bigger problem in East Asia, they often think about it in the context of themselves and their neighbors and their trading networks. But the biggest disruption that it's going to cause is in this part of the world. And so you've got China with a fertility rate of like 1.2, Japan with a fertility rate of 1.3, South Korea 0.9, and Taiwan. I've seen all sorts of weird fertility rates for Taiwan recently. From this one has it at 1.1, but I've seen it down to below South Korea at 0.76.
Yeah, what's going on? Get it straight, guys.
Falling very quickly is the general gist of it. But the wider point here is who is declining within this region. It is everyone who is economically relevant is declining within this region. And well, I should say not everyone. So then the question is, okay, you're saying there's somebody near this part of the world that isn't in a complete free fall right now. Who are you talking about? Well, the two countries that are economically relevant in this region and are not in complete free fall are Australia with a TFR of like 1.56
Mm.
and New Zealand with fertility rates I've seen of between like 1.6 and 1.85, which is actually very robust.
I mean,
And
for these days.
for these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, you still need 2.1, people. Just to remind you, if you're new to this podcast and subject, if you want your country to maintain a stable population, you need to have a total fertility rate of 2.1 or more.
Right. And a lot of people can say, well, what about, for example, India, right? Like with its TFR of 2 on average now, or it's slightly below replacement rate.
Mhm.
And this is again where you sometimes even need to look sub-regionally to predict the future of a region. You can't think about these countries as just countries, like India as just India. You need to see who in India is having lots of children. And India, it's Muslim extremists. And if India does become a country because it's a democracy where Muslim extremists end up running the country, it's going to almost immediately fracture. And completely change its relationship with Pakistan, because that would change things pretty extremely. India's in a very dangerous demographic position right now, and it's something that's like very well known on the ground in India. It's sort of a ticking clock in terms of its regional power, because its regional power relies on the existing sort of demographic breakup staying largely the same. And note here, people can be like, oh, well, wouldn't this be the same thing as like minorities becoming the majority in the United States? Like, suppose like Hispanics became the majority in the United States, and then they started electing, a bunch of Hispanic presidents or something like that. No, not even a little bit. Like the conflict between the Hindus and the Muslims in India is very, very much hotter than the conflict in America between wasps and Hispanics. There is not a deep, like there is, a little bit of tension occasionally, but it's not that deep or bad of tension. And what's also interesting about the United States is it's often the regions with the most history with Hispanic populations, i.e., where you're getting a lot of Hispanic populations moving, where you have the most positive sort of perceptions of them, and integration of them with locals. One of the problems that Texas Republicans always have is they have a history of being more open to immigration than other Republicans, which has really hurt them. It hurt, I forgot, one of the guys who was running in the election cycle, I can't remember his name, but he was primarying Donald Trump a few election cycles ago, and it was a big problem for him.
I'm thinking of Rick Perry here.
But it was a George Bush was that way too. So you have this problem consistently, but I think as a problem, what it shows is that when these populations live next to each other for a long time, they often begin to become quite, fine with each other. That is not what we're going to see in India. And this also, when people frame everything like this in terms of like racism or whatever, they're like, you are racist to care about this stuff, right? I'm like, you do see that an entire half of the world is going to have the scales dominated in favor of white people in New Zealand and Australia, and you're just ignoring that because it doesn't fit your narrative. Now, here I need to talk about AI, and we're going to get into a number of AI studies after we go around the globe, but just to first here, people can be like, oh, well, there's still some, economically, what about Cambodia? They're sort of have a stable population at like 2.2, or Vietnam, which has a stable population at like 1.9.
And don't get us wrong, good for them.
Yeah, the Philippines at 2.7. And it's like, well, the problem is this kind of developing economy, what type of job are they taking, right? Like, what type of job did you have in India most frequently when it was in its period of development? It was outsourcing, the type of jobs that you go to Upwork for. The problem is outsourcing and call centers are the very first things that AI is being applied to at scale. You probably already interacted with AI call bots, right? That's not awesome for these regions that are hoping to spam it with just lots of people.
Well, and combine that with increasing protectionism, which people like Peter Zeihan expect is only going to increase, that we're going to see less global trade and exchange. So there will be less interest in people even outsourcing non-service professions, things like clothing production, factory production in general, etc. So
And-
in
and-
general, the headwinds are not they're not favorable.
If people are wondering why that would happen, it's because the US has less motivation to do international deals. It has a strong motivation to be protectionist now. Both of the United States political parties have a protectionist bent, like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris had a bunch of protectionist policies. Donald Trump had a bunch of protectionist policies. And the even more protectionist of the two protectionist parties won. And he's shown perfectly willing to implement these protectionist policies. Like you look at the chip restrictions and everything like that on China, that was all under the Biden administration that stuff was started. So the United States, and I think AI might even increase the relevancy of being protectionist going forwards, because when you can totally automate a factory, like why do we send stuff to China to have it made inexpensively? It's because inexpensive Chinese labor. The more automation that's possible, the more that can be done in the United States, right? The less of a motivation you have to ship out. And in addition, if we are going to ship out, now it's cheaper. Like if you're setting up a new factory from scratch, to just do it in Mexico, which is closer to us and kept artificially inexpensive because of the gangs in a really weird economic way. It's a very weird situation. Like Mexico is like geopolitically like way worse than it should be, given its demographics, education level, location next to the United States, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, did you know Mexico has fallen below the US in some measures in terms of TFR?
Yeah.
And above the US in terms of obesity rates now.
Yeah.
So Mexico's got some
Poor Mexico. Yeah, they've got a lot going on right now.
So next, let's go to the Middle East, right? Because I think a lot of people, they look at the Middle East and they're like, oh, the Middle East has great TFRs. And I think you can immediately see the economically relevant countries don't. Like, look at Turkey here, 1.4, right? Iran, 1.6, right? Like those aren't great.
No.
The only place where you see the good ones is like, like Tunisia in Egypt, right?
No, but that's the poverty. Then we talked about this when we did our Middle East birth rates episode, and it would dispel basically the rumors of, oh well, it's Muslims and people in the Middle East. No, their fertility rates are not that good, and when they are good, it's because they haven't developed yet. That's it. It's this classic pattern. Are they poor? Okay, well that's why their fertility is high. Okay, get over it. Stop.
And AI, this is the thing. You could be like, well, I mean, at least like the rulers in the geographically regions. And one of the things that we've got to keep in mind by the future is the Pax Romana, the urban monoculture. This is sort of the piece that's being held up by Europe right now, is going to collapse. Europe, a lot of these countries are like 20 years away from their social security systems collapsing. And when Europe starts to break apart as a geopolitical force, them telling other people to not kill each other or enslave each other over stupid things is not going to be as effective. And in the Middle East, there's a lot of groups that want to kill or enslave their neighbors over silly things. And well, not necessarily over silly things, or even just like economic, right? We see this all over the place where you basically have slavery all across the region already, if you don't literally have slavery in the region. Now, people could say, well, what if, the super wealthy groups that aren't doing good in fertility, they just sort of enslave the populations near them that do have this high fertility rate, and they can use that to sort of economically cheese their system in a way that they kind of are already. The problem with this is that it's twofold for this region. One, as soon as we have good AI bots that you can build, right? They're just more efficient than slaves. This is, if you think about, I have a AI scenario I created for rfab.ai when it's implemented. We haven't implemented the scenario yet, where you are, a commander for the Terran Federation, which is a far future Earth fascist empire, and you've just conquered a planet, and you need to justify why the planet's populace shouldn't just be liquidated, because you could just have AI workers replace them with less resistance and well, less expensively. And you can be like, well, what about the energy cost? And it's like, remember, you are in the Middle East, which means even if you didn't have inexpensive gas for energy, you would have endless solar power in some of these regions.
And we're going to end up with much more scalable nuclear energy too, which I think is big.
Yeah. Which means that we may have an opportunity for the most economically productive of these regions to consolidate their power and have even more power. But for everyone else, they're basically effed. and national borders probably won't matter as much once the urban monoculture falls. Like the idea of national borders is something that's become normalized in a large part because of the Pax de Romana implied by Europe. When countries decide they want to expand their borders going forwards, historically, that was something people did all the time. Like now it's something you just don't do that much. So going on to Europe, we've been talking about what a terrible, terrible situation Europe is in. And here, if you look at a map, across Europe, you're looking at things like in the more Catholic countries, like Italy and Spain, 1.2, which, as I pointed out, it's like 1.85 actually. For every 100 Italians, there's going to be 20 great grandchildren at this point, and this is assuming it doesn't get worse, right? And even and then you see, you've got ones here, 1.2s all over the place. But if you're looking at the better ones, and this is another thing where people are like, oh, you're worried about fertility rates because it's your people who are going to suffer. And I'm like, it's not my people. Like wherever I look,
we're pretty fine.
End up dominating. So we are English, Scottish, Scandinavian background, right? So if you look at this map and you ask the question, what are the places that are better off in fertility rate and still economically productive? Okay.
Yeah.
France 1.6.
Say it with us, audience.
Ireland 1.6. Yeah. England 1.5. Scandinavia and Norway at 1.4, 1.4. Germany 1.5. Denmark 1.5. It's Switzerland 1.5. It's the places that look like me. There are some other places that have slightly higher fertility rates here, like the 1.6 in Turkey, right? And some of these countries in the Balkans that have decent fertility rates, but they're not economically particularly relevant, which is the problem here, right? Like we need to be realistic. They're not gonna, Turkey isn't gonna become an economic powerhouse overnight just because its population is declining slightly slower than these other places. Yeah. It's also gonna have to deal with the social security issues as things start collapsing, okay?
Yeah. Even those who are doing okay are still going to face dependency ratio cascades as time goes on.
A dependency ratio cascade is a phenomenon where in the United States, you have 1.8 people paying into the tax system for every one person who's living off of the tax system. This number gets worse as more and more people get old because you have more and more people in Social Security. And eventually you reach a point where the majority of the population is relying on the government, and then democracies stop working because people never vote themselves less money, if they're living off the government. And so then all the productive taxpayers leave, and your country ends up in a terrible situation. But if we want to talk about terrible situations, look at Latin America, right? Like not only are they not great off economically, but like look at a country like Argentina that's 1.16. How do you fix that?
They're trying to import some Mennonites, so that's a start.
Look at Chile, 1.03.
Yeah, not good.
Brazil, 1.47. Mexico, 1.45. Peru, 1.7. Colombia, 1.06. Venezuela. Oh, we got a strong one here. You can be like, well, some of these countries are
all you have to do is just create rampant poverty and have blackouts and brownouts and little electricity and food shortages and
who's okay here? Stuff. Venezuela and Haiti. You think because they're okay with demographics right now, they're going to be economic power players in the future? Everyone with an education in Venezuela is leaving. Right? Everyone who's economically productive is leaving.
They've left already. Yeah, we've seen this. I mean, the travel business that we managed at the time that we acquired it, basically its specialty was working with Venezuelan travel agencies that were either specialized in getting Venezuelans out of Venezuela or literally flying suitcases full of US dollars into the country because their currency wasn't exactly working anymore.
By the way, Simone, how I often tout the I've been to 50 countries statistic.
Yeah.
A huge part of that is because it's on this map in the island chain that there's a bunch of different numbers listed because there's so many different countries in that chain.
Yeah.
I took a boat trip through that island, scuba trip.
So that's just one of those like ding 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 ding
ding ding ding ding ding ding ding ding ding ding. Yeah. So that's how I
that explains a lot. Okay.
Like 10 of those.
Seems like excessive,
It does seem excessive, but yeah. But I think you can see by looking at this, like you look throughout Central America, right? You see, 1.1s, 1.7s in some cases, 1.3. This is not good. This is not a place that's better off when people are like, you're concerned about white people. Also, I'd note in the United States, remember I said what matters is the groups that are breeding when they have money, right? Because what's going to happen to a group over time if they're having tons of kids and it's only the ones who don't have money who are having tons of kids is one, that population is going to be subjective to dysgenic selection, which has negative effects. But then two, even culturally speaking, if it's making an anti-education choice, if it's making a choice to not be economically productive that leads to that group surviving and proliferating, the cultural elements in those groups that enhance that choice are going to proliferate in the future. In the US, this becomes really important because if you're like, who's going to dominate the future of the United States? If you are above 50% income in the United States, above 50% income, who has the highest fertility? What demographic? Can anybody guess? It's white people.
Yeah,
White
not
have
what people
the
would think.
fertility.
I'll send you on WhatsApp the Institute for Family Studies graph that shows this because it's so actually when you look at it, it actually looks as though when we get beyond just abject poverty, there is actually a slight positive correlation between income and fertility, but only for white people.
Only for white people.
For all other groups, it goes down, which really does. It kind of makes what they're arguing for look really bad because they keep arguing like give people more money and they'll have more kids, and it's like, well, that's not really true except for just white people. Can you guys maybe stop?
White people? White people do have more kids.
You're showing your hand, guys. This is not a good look for you.
No, but the thing here is people are like, oh, what about scary black TFR, which isn't even that high, by the way. And I always point out here, but it is very important to note, black people in the United States that aren't in like the bottom, I'd say 15% of income for black individuals have the lowest fertility rate of any ethnic group in the United States.
Yeah, they are at risk. They are at risk. They need help.
Yeah, and anybody who's wealthy, black friends knows this. Like black people, when they get money, they have like no kids. And there's a number of reasons for this. We won't get into it in this episode. Might be worth doing a whole episode of why black people don't have kids when they have money.
That actually would be an interesting episode. Yeah. Because I think it's similar to people being like, oh, we'll just use Latin America indefinitely to get population numbers up for the United States, which is, as we've shown, super not going to happen. The other thing that people constantly say is like, well, black people and Africans are just going to keep having lots of babies. So, just don't worry about it. They'll take care of it. And it's like, well, actually, assuming you're not in poverty, no. No. Let's work on that.
And so here, I want to go over some studies because I have made the assertion many times, and I do deeply believe this, that as AI becomes more advanced, there will be sections of the population that just can't do anything as good as AI can do it. And the question is what is their role within the economy and with the geopolitical order within which we live when that happens? And the question here is, but is that true? Because if you anecdotally think about it, you will have heard of some studies that show that AI actually increases the productivity of less productive workers more, and it increases the productivity of more productive workers less. So let's go over some of these studies. In a field experiment with nearly 5,200 customer support agents, a Fortune 500 software firm access to a generative AI conversational assistant increased average productivity, issues resolved per hour by 14%. The gains were largest, up 35%, for the least skilled and least experienced agents, those with under 3 months tenure. While highly skilled agents saw minimum or no improvement, the AI disseminated tacit knowledge from top performers, allowing novices to quote unquote move up the experience curve faster, with treated agents at 2 months tenure, matching untreated agents at 6 months tenure. This also improves customer satisfaction and reduced employee turnover among the newer workers, suggesting potential to narrow base skill inequality. So think about that. A 2 months employee is now equal to a 6 months employee.
It's almost like a prosthetic for dumb people.
Yes. And it wasn't helping the smart people at all. So what I think is really happening here, and we're going to see this over and over again, is midwits. Because if you're working at a call center, even if you are a higher end producer, you're probably on the midwit side of the spectrum. I mean, you'd be running the company if you were on the higher end of the spectrum. Midwits are over, as Brian Chow once said. Mid is over. Mid artists, mid musicians, mid employees, mid humans.
Yeah, just the center. If you're in the center of the bell curve, watch out. Yikes.
Let's go next. An online experiment with 453 college-educated professionals on writing tasks, e.g. press releases, reports showed that ChatGPT reduced task time by 40% and improved quality output by 18% on average. Weaker skilled participants benefited the most, leading to a convergence in performance and reduced inequality between the high and low ability workers. Participants exposed to ChatGPT were twice as likely to adopt it in their real jobs later, indicating lasting effect. A study involving over 700 Boston Consulting Group consultants on tasks like idea generation and analysis found that GPT-4 improved performance by 40% when used within its capabilities. Lower skilled consultants saw a 43% boost relative to their baseline, compared to 17% for higher skilled ones, suggesting AI acts as an equalizer. IMF Analytics cites research showing AI helped less experienced workers enhance productivity more quickly, with younger workers adopting it faster. In advanced economies, AI could complement about half of exposed jobs, boost output, but this is more pronounced for entry to high-level roles. Now, let's go to the other end. The same MIT Sloan BCG study found that tasks outside of GPT capabilities, complex problem solving requiring human judgment, AI use decreased performance by 13 to 24% as users over relied on flawed outputs. Higher skilled models were better at applying a cognitive effort to integrate. The point here being is, for the type of thing that humans are better at than AI makes mid worse and dramatically worse when contrasted with experts.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're seeing but what does this mean economically? It means a slight boosting, and I suspect temporary boosting of the very bottom of the economy. And then it's going to be basically washed out when AI can do everything they can do. And the reason why AI can't do everything they can do is mostly just problems with the models and the way they're set up right now, because you don't have persistent memory learning, an easy way to create them to be more agentic, which is a project we're going to work on with our AI company. Broader analysis suggests AI could widen gaps by displacing low-skilled jobs while complementing high-income roles. For instance, AI may increase demand for skilled labor in knowledge-intensive fields, leading to a pyramid-type skilled structures. Autonomous AI agents, e.g. systems that handle routine work independently, tend to benefit knowledgeable individuals more as they can orchestrate and verify AI outputs more effectively. And then, anyway, I'll just leave that out. But yeah, the point here being, I think what we're going to see is at first a huge jump to sort of mid-intellect individuals. And then as the very low skilled individuals, like not at the very bottom, like basically tards, but the type of people he would used to outsource to. And then after that, we're going to see them become economically irrelevant, as AI can do literally everything they can do, especially as AI can do physical tasks more. And then the world is essentially going to be dominated by a very narrow class of people who is having kids at a very low rate in most economies right now.
Yeah. Like, maybe what I hear more people saying is that just the stock market in general is going to see a big boom. White collar jobs are going to be wiped out. So generally, like, high achieving MBA holding, more highly educated people are going to find themselves high and dry. Those with money to invest, though, will be able to make a lot of money during this period. Those who are in the trades are going to maintain stable jobs for the foreseeable future, because it's going to take a long time for us to catch up with robotics. And so the really big disruption is going to be just a hollowing out of what many people think of as the middle class, or the middle class is just going to change from what historically has been seen as more of a college education holding, I don't know, like a higher social class kind of group, to a high earning but trade degree holding, and maybe not seen as like coastal elite culture style person, which I think is kind of great and more close to the American ideal.
Yeah,
so that's what I think.
I think people are just underestimating a few things in a lot of their calculations here. It's even within the high fertility countries, how few of those high fertility people are big economic contributors and big, like the type of person who's going to be inventing the next AI system. I mean, take a country like Israel, which I do laud, like secular Jewish populations, conservative religious Jewish populations have decent fertility rates, but they're still absolutely stomped by ultra Orthodox Jews, many of whom are not the type of groups that are going to develop cutting edge AI systems. And that, as our governments take more and more of a burden to care for these populations, that's going to hit us more and more going forwards.
Yeah.
And that's going to change like daily life a lot. I mean, I think a lot of kids aren't even really planning to enter the economy right now, which is such an interesting sort of phenomenon.
I 100% agree. And can you blame them? I mean, I think a lot of people in Gen Z or Gen Alpha have already more or less decided, like, I guess that's not going to happen to me anymore. So we're there. This is the reality we occupy now. The question is, what's going to happen after the shakeout? Right now, the earthquake is happening. What happens after the aftershocks have mostly passed and we're in some form of new normal? That I don't know. But like I said, trade's good. Building a public reputation and specialization that is likely going to maintain relevancy in a post-AI age, good. If you want to have a job, man, mechanical engineering, that seems like a pretty good place to be. Because that's one place where I know there's going to have to be so much work done in order for us to get to that full-on AI age. We're just super behind in robotics, and you can see that.
But I think that the bigger thing that you're missing with all of this is when I'm going over all this, and I'm going over the geopolitics of all this, is going forwards, how much which country you happen to be in is going to matter. I've lived in an age with very little war. Like the fact that there is a war in Europe at all right now, people are acting like is absolutely insane. When, historically wars were very common between regions.
Yeah.
If you look at the rate of war in the world right now, like it's like at a super low rate, historically speaking. I don't think that it's not just that we might have now, are we going to have more quote unquote traditional wars? Maybe not even traditional terrorism, because keep in mind, older people don't do this stuff as much. They're just not as radical as other groups. But we've got to ask, what does happen once countries begin to become economically unfeasible? Like what is actually going to happen across Latin America and Europe when they hit a dependency ratio cascade? Like I think we don't know. Or actually, I'll try to map this out. I think that Japan and Korea are going to figure this out in some way. It's going to be hard and it's not going to look nice, but they'll figure out some solution, not for saving their populations. I think that their fertility rates are going to stay pretty bad.
Just writing them off.
Yeah, I'm just saying preventing a complete government collapse due to their social security system not working. But I think that then some other countries are going to be like, oh, well, we in Europe will be able to do what they did. And I'm like, no, like South Koreans are much more disciplined than you. I've worked with both of these populations before. I lived in South Korea. I lived in Europe. Something that you implement in South Korea isn't necessarily going to work in the UK. And so I think that that's where we're going to see some really brutal collapses, Europe and Latin America. And I actually might even recommend people to seriously think about immigrating out of countries that are in really, really bad dependency ratio situations right now.
So, maybe we should do a whole episode on this, but I feel like many Latin American countries, not due to some wise form of preparation, but perhaps due to a lack of trust and conscientiousness when it comes to filing taxes or things like that, or like an expectation of corruption, meaning that you've had to make a more trustless society, have set up social services in a way that could possibly be accommodated by demographic collapse and reduces the incidence of dependency ratio cascades. For example, in the United States, right now, people paying into Social Security actively, like us as active taxpayers, our money is being used by people who are draining the system. Like we don't, you can log in and see your account, but that's your money ain't sitting there safe. Whereas in Peru, where we worked for a while, we learned through having to manage all of the account deposits and reporting, that citizens have their dedicated bank account in Banco Nacional de Peru that is its own bank with its own branches, where employers have to deposit money into your retirement account, into an unemployment account, and they're real accounts that you can see, and that's your money sitting there. So in that sense, like, whereas we're in the United States going to see Social Security collapse between 2032 and 2036, probably what's going to happen is they're just going to start devaluing the US dollar to a certain extent, and you know, the purchasing power of a dollar is going to go down as they just kind of make up for it by being like, oh, don't worry, we're just printing more money, it's fine. Whereas in Peru, at least when it comes to retirement accounts, they don't need to like find the money to pay people out, if I understand how things are being run correctly. So I wonder if maybe based on the way that some societies' social safety nets have been set up, it's going to be okay. For example, like similar thing happens in Peru with unemployment. The way that unemployment works is that you as an employer have to deposit money into your employees' individual unemployment accounts. And we have had employees ask us to fire them so that they can liquidate those accounts and use the money for like other stuff. And then like rehire them when we're like, we're not doing that. We're not going to do that. But like that, the money is real. Whereas what we do in the United States is pay into this like vague state unemployment system. And it's not really clear what happens when you lose your job. You have to apply for it. There's all these other hoops you have to jump through. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. It kind of depends on like how you were fired and how long. Whereas like, no, it's super clear. In Peru, money gets deposited into that periodically. You can log in and see exactly how much money is in that account. So like the longer you've worked somewhere, the bigger your unemployment account gets. And when you lose your job or are fired, that money is now yours, and you know exactly how much there is. And there's no application process. There's no, you know, would you qualify? I don't know, because it's your freaking money. So I do wonder if there are some countries that are counterintuitively perhaps, or due to the nature of their infrastructure, not as screwed because they didn't use as much of the Ponzi scheme model as other countries. What do you think?
I mean, Peru just has a fantastically like designed a lot of parts of it's like, for example, when I pay my local taxes, there's a little envelope for putting your credit card information in, and they're just like, we'll just charge you your taxes. And they give you a brochure of everything.
Yeah, you can go on auto pay. It's just like a Netflix subscription, but they also give you a beautiful booklet that shows you all the nice things that have been used to improve your local municipality when you pay those taxes, which is just so nice. I'm like, yeah, take my, absolutely.
You're doing something. That's great.
Auto pay set up. Yes.
Yeah, there's systems that are better, and you might be right about this, but Peru more broadly, if we're just going to talk about Peru, is completely, because basically all of Peru is Lima. Lima is like a third of the population of Peru. It's a huge chunk of their economy. And Lima is, I think, the largest city in the world in the middle of the desert, or one of the largest, but it's in a giant desert.
Yeah, you really feel it. Like as soon as you step out, you're like, am I on Mars? It looks like Mars. It's this red sand.
Yeah, as soon as you get outside of the city itself. In the city, it feels like you're in like a jungle oasis of you know, really nice stuff, all the cliff edge, the ocean. But the problem is that the water that the city relies on is going to dry up in something like 20 years. Not that long. It comes
unless
from
they get
glaciers.
really good. I feel like AI could really help with desalination technology, and then they're fine.
Yeah, Elon has mentioned that they might be able to do something with desalination. We'll see, but I wonder.
We have to hope.
Also, keep in mind,
we really need nuclear to work. We really need desalination to work.
That a lot of the developing world is propped up by demand from China, right? Like a lot of these countries, like Peru, a lot of Latin American countries, a lot of African countries make a lot of their money selling commodities. A lot of these commodities are basically building materials, which are used to build this giant real estate bubble that happened in China. with China being at a TFR of 1.2, you need to look, like, if you want to know the future of your country, don't just look at your fertility rate. Look at a breakup of who's buying your stuff, and then look at their fertility rates. Because if their fertility rates are bad, that's going to hit you really bad as well. That's the future of your economy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else is there to say? I mean, that's...
Well, it's just such a thing when you're thinking about the future of geopolitical control and AI and all that, to not get high fertility rates caused by poverty confused with actual high fertility rates, as a lot of people do.
That's fair. Yeah, that's underrated.
Future relevancy. Anyway, I love you, Simone. This is a very interesting conversation and a good sort of catch up for people who haven't heard this stuff in a while. And very excited to be giving this speech to some very important people in the near future.
Me too. Yeah. Looking forward to our drive time together.
All right. Bye.
I think I figured out why I've been so irritable today. And I was deprived of my morning walk with you. I'm an addict. That's what happens.
Well, tomorrow we're going to be in the car to DC and back.
Yeah, so that's going to be a good day. Although we may have calls on the car ride, but
oh, really?
That's okay. It's going to be so many hours. We'll have.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to need to memorize that speech and blah 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 blah.
Yes.
I appreciate your work on putting together the slide deck. Make sure you get that for me so I can review it tomorrow morning as I get an episode ready to go.
Yeah, after dinner, I'm going to finish it up. It will be
all right,
done.
that works for me. The comments on the episode today, I was so surprised that it did bad. The one on AI and like the Silicon Valley people becoming religious because of AI. And I had another one prepped on the same topic because I found a really interesting article on this trend, and it did really bad. And so I don't get it. I thought our audience would love that.
I mean, you could make it something that we put on Patreon for one of our Patreon only weekend episodes.
That's a potentially good idea. Yeah, that's the type of thing that they would like.
All right, let's do that.
Simone won't let me. We created a book out of her personal diaries from the first year we met called Into the Heart of Darkness.
Which is the best title ever.
Book we published. But she wouldn't let me. I was like, oh, I'll release it on Patreon. And she's like, you absolutely will not. Our platform is too big now. And I was, well, what? It was going to be our debut book. And now I can't even publish it on Patreon?
Yeah. I mean, someone might convince me someday, but hey, I really trust our friends who are like, whatever you do, don't publish.
No, what she said is it just wasn't entertaining to read as we thought it was. But I think that was the case because she had not the personal investment in us that somebody who subscribed to our Patreon would. They would be very interested to what are Simone's inner thoughts when she's first meeting Malcolm in the first year they're dating, when she's promising to break up, I'll only date you if you break up with me, etc. Like, what was she thinking during their breakup? Like, this is all, I think, from a you know what, our podcast fans can weigh in on this, and you can tell Simone whether or not she needs to publish this to Patreon. Maybe to a special tier. And the comments on the AI religion video were just like not that interesting. It was just like, oh, those dumb atheists taking too long to figure it out.
Some people were sharing specific thoughts on specific elements of religion. Some people were trying to argue that AI is a false god, but you were never saying that AI was a god, so I think they weren't really paying attention. Yeah. It was a mix, and there were some people who a lot of people just really enjoyed the subject, like you. So
this is where people are being stupid. AI is not a god, nor would we argue that it's ever going to be a god, but it is an intelligence, and it is like us, a token predictor. And it is the first orthogonal intelligence we have ever encountered, which means that it is very useful in attempting to model, because God, a supernatural entity from the perspective of most people, certainly an entity that is different from us in some incredibly meaningful way, like as different as we are from AI. By looking at how AI is different from us, we can begin to understand the different ways that thought machines can be different from each other. And this is useful when attempting to model out supernatural entities and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's something to just throw away and be like, hey, this is a pointless thing to not engage with. Anyway, I love you, Simone, and I will get started.
I love you too. They are?